If you manage to bag a new gaming PC this Christmas and are ready to start streaming, or it's just something that you've wanted to try out and sort of try and get into, it can be really daunting looking at the often triple-digit dollar signs hanging next to, well, pretty much all streaming gear. It seems like a rather high barrier to entry, especially for the sort of top-tier kids, but even more especially if you're just dipping your toes in the streaming waters or just getting started. You don't need a 4K 60 DSLR or a £1,000 audio setup and hundreds of pounds in capture cards and lights. That's where the sponsor of this video, Streamplify, comes in. They're launching a full line of streaming hardware designed to be everything that a beginner could need, all for a budget price tag. This is their full lineup, or at least for now anyway, and it's exactly what you need to get started. Let me give you a quick tour of these bits first, and then we'll get them set up, show you how to, say, get your streaming set up, including the stream settings and that sort of thing up and running, and then we'll play some games and sort of stream with them as well. First is the most important part of a streaming setup, the microphone. You have two different options here. Both are the same actual physical microphone. The only difference between them is their attachment method. The one in front here includes a tripod, whereas the one in the back includes a boom arm to mount the microphone, but both come with shock mounts included and even a pop filter as well. The mic itself is a USB-C condenser mic using 16mm condenser capsules with a sort of cardioid pickup pattern, a 100 to 18 kHz frequency response, and 16-bit 48 kHz sampling. Of course, it has an RGB ring around the body because that's an instant 10 FPS gain, naturally, and a large dial on the front to increase the output level or press it to mute the mic. You've even got a 3.5mm jack on the front, so if you want to output or monitor the audio, you can do that from there. Next up is the camera. When it comes to streaming, you really don't need something over the top and crazy, especially when you end up just sticking your face in a bottom corner somewhere. Something like 1080p 60 is plenty fine, which is why the Streamplify cam is, well, exactly that. Of course, it has things like autofocus built in, a 90-degree field of view, and can either obviously clip to your monitor like a standard webcam, or can also screw in or thread in to a tripod head like the one that comes included in the box. But for me, the absolute best thing about this is the privacy features. Not only does this have a physical sliding cover over the lens and front-facing mic, but if you hear that click, that little click is an electronic disconnect to in hardware. If this cover isn't completely 100% open, then, well, it's not connected to your PC at all, and so, well, it can't be used to see or hear you, which is something that I really like. Of course, if you're going to be showing your beautiful faces on stream, then you want to make sure that they're well lit, which is why there are two different ring light options. They have the Light 10, which is a 10-inch ring light that's powered by just USB, specifically a 2-amp port, but USB nonetheless. You can screw the cam straight into it with its little tripod head and then use the controls on the USB cable to turn it on and adjust things like brightness and even color temperature. It delivers up to 480 lumens with a CRI or color rendering index of over 90 and color temperatures between 3000 Kelvin and 6000 Kelvin. Also comes with a sort of desk-sized tripod so that you can mount the light to it. Alternatively, if you prefer a bit more light, then the Light 14 is a larger 14-inch ring light with up to 2250 lumens, quite blinding, trust me, and much more adjustment too for both the color temperatures and brightness. It is powered by a wall adapter or a wall plug and actually has two USB 2-amp ports on the back if you want to power other devices like the ring light or the Light 10, or for example you can charge up your phone. It also includes a much larger tripod and different mounts to let you mount your phone to if you'd rather use your phone as your webcam instead. And finally, there is the green screen. This thing goes up to 2 meters tall, it's 1.5 meters wide, and includes caster wheels on the bottom and a handle to make it nice and easy to move around. Plus, it actually has hydraulic assistance, so it's easy to lift or sort of close back down again. It's also a really nice even surface, which should make keying this out in something like OBS nice and simple. So you've seen the parts individually, but now it's time to get them set up, show you how to get everything up and running, including the streaming software, and just have a bit of a play. Now, I'm using what I think is a bit more of a, I guess, realistic system, especially for this more budget hardware. It's a Ryzen 2600 and RTX 2060, which, of course, the 2060 is still potentially, well, high-end in today's market, but that 2600 I think is a really good fit for the amount of sort of horsepower that the average user should have, and it's not the absolutely most powerful streaming chip, so that'll be good for our setup here. In terms of the Streamplify hardware, I have the Lite 14 on its stand. We're going to stick the webcam on top of it, obviously plug it all in, set up the green screen, the Lite 10 and the boom arm microphone. So let's get started. We've got a nice bit of side lighting going on. I have the Lite 10 actually just hooked into the back of the Lite 14, you might just about be able to see it, which is one of the really nice features. Also, like I hopefully mentioned already, we have a little remote, which means that I can now blind myself, or, oh, I set it to a reasonable brightness last time, but we can now just control this directly, just with the remote, or if you fancy touching the capacitive buttons on the front, you can do that instead. But let's go for a nice sort of color matched tone, maybe slightly warmer, there we go, and a bit of brightness as well, there we go. So we now have the light set up, let's get the microphone sorted, and then we'll get this thing up and running. When it comes to the microphone, you have the boom arm itself, as well as the clamp that goes on the side of your desk. You have the included shock mount. You also have an included pop filter, and of course the microphone itself. To install the pop filter, there's two sort of little notches on the bottom, and that just slides onto the bottom of the microphone, and then the microphone just slides into the hole in the bottom of the shock mount, and then you just tighten the collar at the bottom to well, secure the mic in place. Once it's nice and secure, which just getting there, then we can thread this onto the boom arm, obviously plug it in with our USB cable, and then I think we'll be just about ready to go. Software-wise, I'm using OBS here, as it's my general go-to when it comes to all things recording and streaming on a especially Windows desktop, but it's also free and open source, which is always great, and it's nice and easy to set up, so let's jump in. The first thing you want to do is make sure you have a scene sort of in your scenes panel. There should be one there by default. If not, press the little plus. And then in the sources box right next to it, we're going to click the plus and click game capture. Click OK and OK again. And this is what's going to hook into our games to actually capture what we're seeing on our screen. And then we're going to click plus again, and we're going to click the video capture device. Again, click OK, and it should pick up our camera. The little activity light has just come on, but you might have noticed that it's a 4:3 window, which isn't quite right. So you need to click on the custom resolution and click 1920 by 1080. And for the output FPS, if you click 60, then that is sorted. You can have a play around with any of the other settings if you fancy, but for now this will do. Just click OK, and now you have a 1080p feed, which especially in this light looks fantastic. Looks incredibly clear, and definitely impressed. I will need to have a little play with the positioning of it just to get it sorted, but for now that'll do. You'll also want to check in the audio mixer settings to make sure that the desktop audio is selected as the correct device, so you can click properties. Default should be fine, but if you want to make sure, you can click the specific one that you're using. Then you can click on the microphone options, which you can see bouncing up and down, and you can also check by tapping or muting the mic, and then it should go perfectly silent, which it has here, and when you turn it back on, it's all good. But you can also triple check that in the default settings again, and so we could swap between, say, the camera's microphone and our actual mic, although of course the actual mic is going to be better quality, so we'll leave that one. And generally speaking, I would recommend muting your video capture device so you don't accidentally end up with two copies of the same audio, but of course slightly different qualities. So that's it for the main setup. Now let's jump into the settings. The first tab you want to check out is the Stream tab, where you can connect your Twitch or YouTube account, whatever platform you fancy streaming to, or you can use the sort of old school method of using your Stream key instead. Either one works fine. Then head to the Output tab. This is where we set up things like our bit rates and which encoder we're going to use. This is really important. For the video bitrate, you should either set this to 6,000 kilobits per second, which is the maximum that Twitch supports by default, or you should set it to whatever is the maximum sort of below 6,000 that your internet connection can handle. In the encoder, this is the really important one. For a CPU like this 2600, which, to make it clear, is perfectly adequate, but it's not quite the absolute fastest, and so I highly recommend you check the hardware option instead. If you have an NVIDIA graphics card like we do here, that will say NVENC, but if you have an AMD graphics card, then it will say hardware AMD instead. When it comes to the audio bitrate, you can select this to whatever you fancy. I'm going to go with 192 bit, which is generally a little bit nicer. And for the recording settings, I'm actually going to set this to same as stream so that it's using the same encoder. And we're going to hit apply just to make sure that those save. In the video tab, you can set this to whatever you fancy. In my case, I'm going to set this to 2560 by 1440 because that's the resolution of my monitor and I want to make sure that everything gets captured nicely. And for the output or scaled resolution, you can set this to either 1280 by 720 or 1920 by 1080 for either 720p or 1080p, depends on what you fancy. Or of course, if you do want to stream at higher qualities, then you can set it to say 2560, especially if that is your monitor's resolution, or even 3840 by 2160 or 4K if you really want to. Although generally speaking, 1080p is the maximum that I would actually stream, say, to Twitch with. And you can also set your FPS values, which for this one, we're going to set to 60. But especially if you have a lower bit rate, it can be actually more beneficial for the visual quality to set it to 30 FPS instead. Either way, we can hit OK and apply, and now we can get things set up, including keying out our green screen. Now, I've just repositioned the camera ever so slightly so that it has a more complete view of me and the green screen. There is still a bit of sort of spillover from the background at the edge, but we'll deal with that in a second. The first thing we're going to do is actually key out this green screen so that I disappear into the background. The way you do that is right-click on the video capture device item, click filters, and then the plus and chroma key, click OK. And then we're most of the way there. You will want to have a little play with the different settings to just get rid of the tiny little edge that's still here, that's still just a little bit green. I think I'll increase the smoothness slightly and maybe also increase the similarity, although not too high, because as you can see, it starts to key out, well, all of the green in the scene, which is included in some of the other skin tones and things and just general shades. So I think we'll go with around 420 there. Nice round number. I think we can also perhaps dim the contrast slightly as I am a little washed out with all of this magnificent light. Maybe dim the brightness slightly as well, and dim the gamma slightly. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. Now, we are mostly keyed out here. However, you can see there is still a nice edge over there, so we'll also need to go back into that filter section, add a new filter, which is crop/pad, and crop out this left side, which the slider number is pretty slow. Let's go with 100, not quite there. 150, not quite. 200, almost. 220. There we go. So we have technically lost some amount of sort of, well, my side, but since I'm going to be putting myself down in the bottom corner down here, it's not too much of a problem. So I've now positioned myself, we have our microphone set up, our game capture ready, so it's now time to jump into some games and have a play. I'll just sneak this in here. Huh? They've got to still be over here, right? 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 There we go. Good. Well, as you can tell, we're up and running with the Streamplify gear, both the camera and you're now hearing me through the microphone, and it's doing pretty well. The green screen keying out is not quite as good as Premiere can generally do, as you'll likely have seen already, but it certainly does a good enough job, and let's face it, I haven't spent all that long tweaking every single setting to get it just right. I'm also sitting incredibly close to the green screen, which is generally not recommended, but it's still doing a perfectly serviceable job, as is the rest of the hardware. It's looking and sounding pretty good, I think, and I think it offers a pretty decent experience for both you in terms of just getting things set up. I mean, the microphone is literally sat on its arm, nice and ready for you. The camera stays in place, and especially if you get the Lite 14, you get a nice little controller to turn everything on, which is great, or the Lite 10 where you just click the button on the USB cable. Again, nice and easy. So yeah, it's pretty good, and I think, like I said, it offers a good experience for your viewers as well, even if the gameplay doesn't necessarily live up to the quality standards. Come on, where is he? No. There we go. Run away. No, I'm gonna die. Yeah. Oh well. If you can't tell, I don't play CSGO very much. In fact, I only play it to film, which generally works out about as well as you'd think. Where is he? Oh, he's right here. Hello. Now, I mentioned that this was a budget setup, but just how budget? Well, the camera is listed for just $59.99, as is the microphone that comes with a tripod, or if you'd rather the boom arm version, then that is $69.95. The smaller ring light, the Lite 10, is just $19.99, and the larger 14-inch ring light is $64.99, and finally the green screen is $129.95. If those prices still aren't cheap enough though, Streamplify are offering bundles with some reasonable discounts. The starter bundle, which includes the camera, the microphone with a tripod, and the 10-inch ring light, that bundle sells for $129.95. The Pro bundle gets you the camera, the microphone with the boom arm, and the same 10-inch ring light, as well as also the 14-inch ring light, and that one sells for $199.99, and the complete bundle for all of this stuff, specifically the camera, both ring lights, the boom arm microphone, and the green screen, is $329.95. So there you have it, an awesome budget streaming setup that's perfect for anyone looking to, well, get into streaming, but doesn't necessarily want to spend an arm and a leg on all of the gear. Thanks again to Streamplify for sponsoring this video. As always, you can check out all of these bits in the links in the description down below. I'll leave links to the different options for you to check out. And of course, thank you to you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful, informative, entertaining, or whatever else. Feel free to let me know what you think in the comments down below. What do you think of the Streamplify gear, and is it some bits that you'd pick up yourself? Like I said, feel free to leave those in the comments down below. Also, if you want to see more videos like this one on a certainly weekly, but normally Monday, Wednesday, and Friday basis, then do hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell notification icon. And if you want to check out some more videos, there'll be plenty on the end cards as well. Otherwise, thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed it, we'll see you on the next video.